As a family, we were of course determined to beat cancer for the second time. And while my wife battled hard, it was just too much for her in the end. My father was a quiet, humble man who worked hard. He was an elder of the Porirua PIC Church for many years. But of course he enjoyed his rugby, cricket, bowls, and of course his beer. I have many memories of being told by my mother to go to the top tavern in the creek and to tell my father, "It's time to come home, Dad. Mum wants you." Most of the time he would be obliging. He would more often not be with his wharfie mates, who were also elders of our church. Yes, they took their communion very seriously. As I said earlier, my father was made redundant from the wharf in 1990, at only 53 years of age. After that, he found it difficult to find full-time work again, but kept himself busy with volunteering for community groups and of course his commitment to the church and a love for sport, especially bowls. This kept him busy. But he also had a love for gardening and always kept the lawns like they were Cardiff Arms Park. I now marvel at his ability to cultivate and grow an incredible taro patch that provided us with many luau, something that we took very much for granted. When Dad became eligible for a super, he would go to Samoa during winter and return in the summer months. However, in September 2009, my mother called me at work and told me that my father had called and said that he wanted to come home, which was earlier than expected. So we paid for him to come early. We didn't think anything of it. However, in hindsight, there were differences in his nature when he returned. He was nearly not as active, and he was quite subdued. However, life carried on, but it was not until my younger sister was helping him to get dressed, she noticed that the coloration of his skin was yellow. Of course, we took him to the doctor. After a number of tests and examination, Dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in early November 2009. Because of a late diagnosis, treatment was not an option, and unfortunately, he passed away 3 weeks after diagnosis. Needless to say, we were devastated as a family, especially with how the illness consumed our father that we loved and cherished. However, my father's death was the motivation behind the Uso Bike Ride. And following morning tea will be part of the workshops, and you'll be able to hear some of the members of Uso share their journeys and challenges and how we use the bike as a way to improve our lives and spread a message of support, hope, love and well-being. But brothers and sisters, in 1989, I met a beautiful young wahine. From Monganui. And in March 1991, we were married at the PIC Church in Porirua. We have 2 beautiful children, Joshua and Jordan. I tried to employ the same method of discipline my father had applied, but my wife refused to do so. In a way, I did not have the heart for it either. Also, she taught me to talk and be open a lot more about things. Something that I found very difficult at first to deal with. But also she wanted me to say I love you more and also tell the kids I love them. Something that we just didn't do when we were growing up. However, as time went by, I became more and more accustomed to doing these things. But in 1995, when our children were very young, my wife was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And as a consequence of it, she spent 5 weeks in the hospital. She had a radical hysterectomy as an operation, and she had to undergo 5 weeks of radiotherapy as a backup to the operation. It was a very tough time as a young family having to endure this experience. However, we got through it and we lived some wonderful times together as a family and some tough times. But in the early part of 2014, my wife started to experience quite acute stomach problems. And for a few months, the doctors could not quite tell what the causes were. But in closer examination and diagnosis, we discovered that she had developed a rare form of cancer. As a result of the radiation treatment that she had received in 1995. As a family, we were of course determined to beat cancer for the second time. And while my wife battled hard, it was just too much for her in the end. For just over a year, she fought hard, but in the end, the illness overwhelmed her. But they say out of despair comes hope. And I take the example my wife portrayed in the last months of her life and how she conducted herself. She really thought of herself and just worried about myself and my children, our children. Because I know after suffering the loss of my wife of 24 years, that we take life, love, and our relationships for granted. We must actually cherish our relationships, the people we love. And although during the last year of my wife's life, it was very tough, in a way, it was the very best, because we left nothing out there. We loved each other immensely. Brothers and sisters, this weekend is about inspiring, equipping, and connecting. I don't have the answers, but hopefully I've been able to do at least one of these actions. God bless us all.